This is my hero. If you told me that at 14, I would never have believed you. Victoria Sepitelli is my paternal grandmother. Now, she was a tough woman. I mean tough as in strong, but I also mean tough as in tough. She didn't ever say, I love you. She didn't give a lot of hugs. In my family, you proved your love through food and through work. The child of Polish immigrants, she was born and lived most of her life on a farm. The two tenets of life I learned from my grandmother were work hard and always do what's right, and man, could she work. Until her early 80s, she continued to farm a full acre of vegetables. She froze, she canned, she pickled, she even made her own ketchup. But by her 9th decade, we convinced her that the old farmland was too much for a woman of her age and moved a few tomatoes and some cucumbers to the flower gardens by her house. Her daily activity was reduced dramatically, and she soon suffered a stroke. Later, she fell off a ladder, and her activity was reduced once again. She developed type 2 diabetes, and the next stroke made it difficult for her to walk, and the following stroke made it difficult for her to talk, but not before learning how to hug and kiss from her great-grandkids. Now, my grandmother's story is not unique. I'm sure everyone watching today knows someone with a very similar story, your friend who retired and then dropped dead of a heart attack 2 weeks later, or your great-aunt who fell and broke a hip and then threw a clot while on bed rest and died. As we age, mobility and activity decreases and our health steadily declines, and that's the American experience of old age. Well, I'm a yoga teacher. I work in a field where I see the exact opposite happen. I work with students every day who lead primarily sedentary lives on tremendous amounts of medication or living with chronic illness and pain. They begin to bring movement back into their bodies, and medical miracles occur. Miracles I feel confident could have changed my grandmother's end-of-life experience. As they begin to bring movement and full range of motion back into their bodies, students see incredible changes. Chronic high blood pressure is eliminated in 4 to 6 weeks. Blood sugar levels normalize, fibromyalgia disappears. That back injury that your doctor said could only be cured with drugs and surgery is rehabilitated. Today I'm going to talk with you about some of those miracles. But keep in mind that the therapeutic benefits are not just for at-risk population. Yoga is known for improving health and fitness, for making you stronger and more flexible, for preventing arthritis, increasing bone density, and eliminating migraines. All around the world, people use yoga to cross-train for decathlons and to lose weight, to prepare for childbirth, and to reduce stress. But it's the lost causes and the extreme cases that we'll focus on today. This is my friend David. His Christmas gift in 2012 was a pacemaker surgically implanted in his chest. Now, you can't expect a guy with heart disease to do hot yoga, except David wanted to feel better. So just 6 weeks after this surgery, he started to practice with me 6 days a week. And only 4 weeks after starting yoga, he returned to Boston for a checkup with his cardiologist. At that visit, his doctor took him off 3 of his 6 prescribed essential medications and cut the dosage of the remaining 3 in half. As he turned to go, David's doctor placed his hand on his shoulder and said, I don't know what this is that you're doing, but keep it up. Or take my teacher, Erin. At the age of 10, she nearly died before her type 1 diabetes was diagnosed. All throughout her life, she used to develop neuropathy in her feet that would last for months. Today, she finds that if she practices 5 days a week, whenever she tests, her sugar levels are always normal. And if she ever develops diabetes-related neuropathy, she measures it by classes or days, but never by months. So, is yoga a miracle? It is, except that it isn't. The human body is miraculous. It has systems that are redundant and resilient and powerful. It can heal and recover from tremendous amounts of trauma and chronic abuse, but the human body was designed to be active. In fact, many of the body's systems are completely reliant on physical activity to function at all. Take your venous system. Most people would assume that the heart pumps blood throughout the body and back to the heart. But by the time your blood reaches your capillaries, the most distal part of your arteries, the projectile power of the heart is gone. Blood is moved back to the heart by contraction of muscles in the surrounding area. This force moves blood through the leaflet valves you see pictured here, kind of like squeezing toothpaste from a tube. This is why your flight attendant always reminds you to point and flex your feet on long flights so you don't throw a clot in your leg. The human body was designed to move in a myriad of ways every day. It was designed to struggle, it was designed to work, it was designed to be dexterous, but above all, it was designed to be active. In the words of my mentor, Emmy Cleaves, pictured here in her 80s, if you're not moving, you're not living. Studies estimate that Americans were 60% more active in their daily lives 100 years ago. In just the last 40 years, our labor-saving devices like remote controls and washing machines save us an average of 110 calories a day. That's 10 pounds a year. It's no surprise that nearly 40% of Americans are clinically obese. This information led to the creation of our first outreach project, Bikram's Biggest Losers. Through this 3-month annual initiative, over 120 residents on the seacoast have lost more than 1,600 pounds in the last 2 years. Pictured here is our first winner. I was inspired by the BBL community and the support they were able to give one another and the cohesiveness that they brought to our greater yoga community. One person's willingness to take a risk, to be vulnerable, always brings out the best in others. Now, obesity is endemic in the United States and has been for years. Another crisis has been quietly building in New Hampshire for the last 2 decades. Despite having a state population less than the top 10 U.S. cities, New Hampshire boasts the highest per capita illicit drug use in the nation. To me, it is no surprise that the Live Free and Let 'em Die state's budget for drug abuse prevention and treatment is beaten by lowest nationally only by everything is bigger in Texas, except for apparently social services. Emergency room visits in New Hampshire for heroin use doubled between 2012 and 2013. You heard that right, 1 year, doubled. This is a problem we cannot ignore any longer. Our beautiful, picturesque seacoast town is in the midst of that epidemic. We have lost someone to heroin overdose every week for the last 3 weeks on the seacoast. We lost 2 men this week. Due to the intensity of the practice, Bikram Yoga tends to attract naturally a lot of individuals in recovery. Over the years, we've supported dozens of people to achieve or maintain sobriety, like my teacher, Karina. Pictured here, you can see highlighted the scars of her suffering. Just over a year ago, she was working to get clean, but led a life that most would consider barely worth living. She was on disability, living in her mother's house, and sleeping for 20 hours a day. Luckily, she found yoga. In just 6 months, she got a job, got off methadone, bought a car, and got a scholarship to become a yoga teacher. She now teaches yoga in New Hampshire and Vermont. I have long had a desire to reach out to the recovery population because of the effectiveness of mindfulness and meditation practices on healing from trauma and addiction. Yoga works particularly well to support sobriety, but I am not an expert on addiction. I was afraid to reach out to addicts because I couldn't offer expertise or comprehensive services. Well, do you know what Grandma Sepp would say to that? Come on, huh? Just because it was hard or scary didn't mean I didn't have to do what was right. And addicts were using yoga, and it was working. The physical activity restores full range of motion. It brings freedom from pain and optimizes health. And when the body is a comfortable home, the desire to feel outside of it is decreased. And yoga appears to reduce the length and intensity of post-acute withdrawal symptoms. These are known as PAWS. These protracted withdrawal symptoms last up to 2 years after getting clean, and they are the primary reason for relapse. PAWS symptoms include things like depression, anxiety, irritability, and sleeplessness. In our exploratory study, our participants reported significant reductions in PAWS symptoms that negatively correlated with number of classes taken. For those of you here who are not statistical geniuses, that negative is a positive. Pictured here are the results from just one measure, emotional overreaction and numbness. Yoga is a meditative practice. The teacher guides the student through present moment experiences in their body that greatly reduce disorders of past and future thinking like depression and anxiety. Now, while the mind can function in past, present, and future, the body can only function in the present moment. As we train our students to attend to the body in the present, the mind quickly learns to follow suit. Depression is plagued also by addiction is plagued also by depression, shame, and isolation. Addiction is a disease of community. It is caused by our environments. So it makes sense that we can only treat addiction by addressing and building communities. Anyone who's ever been part of one knows that community is one of the central tenets of a yoga studio. It's one of the most supportive groups of compassionate individuals you will ever meet. We all struggle and thrive and fail and persevere on the mat together. And that's how we learn what they say in yoga, namaste, that the light within me is the very same as the light within you. reaching out to and connecting with that community when you're in the depths of post-treatment depression and shame is not easy. With that in mind, we paired with 3 local therapists to create what was originally Bikram's Biggest Quitters program, but has now been rebranded as the Sober Yogis program in its 2nd round. This program offers daily yoga classes and weekly group therapy sessions that feature meditation and expressive arts therapy. My partners included licensed family and marriage counselor Oz Akbaz, licensed clinical mental health counselor and expressive arts therapist Carrie Fernald, and Barb Henricks, a licensed alcohol and drug counselor and substance abuse professional with nearly 3 decades experience in the field. One of the most effective aspects of our groups is that all of our therapists are active, dedicated practitioners. The therapist's belief in the process, both in group and in class, is one of the primary reasons we saw such incredible results. Our therapists noted an expedited bonding within the groups. Due to the shared daily struggle on the mat, participants were able to quickly create a safe group where they could share, support, and challenge one another. And these groups, in turn, deepened their commitment to their yoga practice. In our inaugural study, 78% of participants reported remaining sober for the entire 8-week period. The rest reported continuing to use alcohol, but at a reduced rate. Our participants also reported statistically significant reductions in anxiety and depression. As you can see here, the average reported change was negative 10 points. This is a staggering number. This would indicate a change from moderate to severe symptoms down to the mild category, and the depression results were nearly identical. Note the strong correlation between reduction in symptoms and number of classes taken along the bottom axis. Of the challenge, one participant said, "The greatest learning opportunity was knowing a similarity in everyone's journey with addiction and not being alone in this plight to remain sober." Our results were phenomenal, and the beauty of this program is that it can be applied across yoga and mindfulness disciplines. My fears around not being able to meet the needs of individuals in recovery were assuaged by partnering with people who had expertise and skills that I did not. By taking the risk to share this idea, we were able to together create something much bigger than that which we had originally imagined. I am not an expert on addiction. I'm not even an individual in recovery, although my life, like yours, has been touched by addiction. I just knew I had something to offer that could make a difference in the lives of others. Honestly, I don't see any difference in working with students with high blood pressure, obesity, or a history of addiction. It all comes from being disconnected with our bodies, from not using them, but also not paying attention to them, and that's the miracle that yoga has to offer: self-awareness, acceptance, and health. I'm lucky enough that I get to live it and share it every single day. I have the gift for my vocation to be able to help people reach their maximum potential so they can share their skills, expertise, and talents with our community. People thank me for class, but I'm the one who should be thanking them for making my world a better place. This is my student setup when she returned to yoga after breaking her back in a car crash that nearly paralyzed her. Towel-covered folding chair, walker, in a back brace, on the mat, in class with everybody else. We all know someone who needs to move more, who struggles with addiction, or stress, poor health, or pain. In my field, we live by the motto that it is never too late to step on your mat and change your life. My question for you today is, will you?